and start talking, and then I was like, but there's still a little bit on my plate, and just started shoveling that into my mouth. So yeah, welcome to this conversation about Christian dating. It's we got some young adults here too, and this is going to be a good time talking about being a Christian and dating another human. Let me see. Hopefully this clicker works. Does it? Let's find it. There we go. Okay, so I'm just here mainly to kind of give the data of dating and different viewpoints and all that kind of stuff, and then towards the end I'll offer some kind of biblical principles and then just opinion. So, if you don't agree with me, that is totally fine. But here's kind of some views on dating in our world, in the church. So starting on this side, marriage is never a goal in this relationship. That is how some people view dating. For those of you who watched Friends, if you are old enough to have watched that, that's a little bit, I think of this, Friends is kind of representative of that. Kind of in the middle is marriage might result from this relationship, so not too gung-ho about it, but not ruling it out. And then the last one being marriage is the goal of dating. So we'll start with marriage is never a goal in this relationship. So we're talking mainly of our secular culture is kind of who has this viewpoint. Surprisingly, Americans actually really value marriage. Despite what you might be hearing in media and news and stuff like that of the breakdown of the family, that's all maybe still true. But in general, when people are asked about marriage, they have really nice things to say about it and really value it. But that doesn't translate into what people are doing, even though they give lip service to it and say that, marriage is something to be valued. The marriage rate actually hit a 50-year low in 2020, and then in 2021 got even lower, and they calculated it's about 28 marriages per 1,000 unmarried women. So this is kind of this is where we're going when it comes to marriage in our culture. And the question is, why? I mean, that was the question that I asked when I saw this. And there are so many reasons why people aren't getting married anymore. For one, and actually we were kind of touching on this in our conversation, the institutions that we have set up in raising kids have pushed back some life milestones. So what I mean by that is probably if you were to go to Andy Griffith Town, because I love Andy Griffith. I'm not mocking that show. It's so good until Don Knotts left, and then it was why are we still doing this anymore? But if you're going back then to that time, you would get your high school diploma and stuff like that, and then you would pretty quickly find a trade, and you would be in your early 20s, and you would be at that job for the rest of your life. Which is, in a way, kind of awesome. You'd have that amount of job security. But it meant that, okay, if you're the man in that situation, and especially in that time, it was, you're the provider, and so, you've reached this life milestone, you've got the career, you are able to support a family, which means then you can pretty quickly get married and start having kids and have that nuclear family kind of American dream thing. But what we've done now is we keep pushing back that milestone of getting a career. So first you have to go to high school, you have to get your diploma, then you need to go to college in order to get the job that you want, which pushes back that, okay, I'm able to find the career. And then companies are nuts. So those of you, especially the young adults, right, who have tried to find a job any time recently, how many years of experience do they want? If they're going to hire you. like 5 to 7 years, and you just got out of college. So it's like, how do I do that? So then it's like, it keeps pushing back, someone feeling ready because they don't have a stable career. And then another thing, besides the institutions, we've also, with the advent of smartphone use and social media, that's really contributed a lot to social anxiety. When people ask me about dating and relationships in youth group, because they're used to their experience growing up in youth group, that was a big thing of, the guys and the girls and trying to, keep them from, just keep their hands to themselves. That's not as big of a problem now because, like a lot of people have youth, a lot of them have social anxiety, and they're like, I don't really want to talk to the opposite sex. That scares me. So that kind of has something to do with this as well, as a lot more social anxiety. It's made life more difficult. A lot of people are having to go to therapy and stuff like that first and figure themselves out before they would worry about getting into a relationship. And in some ways, it's made dating life more difficult as well. There's also things like, for those youth who saw the promo video, like Christian Tingle, sorry, it was a Christian Mingle parody video, and it was hilarious. Another aspect, especially for younger generations, another aspect of this is in our country, we've done no-fault divorce laws. And so because of that, the divorce rate really just ballooned ever since 1969 when California passed the no-fault divorce law. And that's meant that, some of you might know like latchkey kids and stuff like that, where, parents are divorced, they give them a key to the apartment, and they're like, just let yourself in, Well, when you've got divorced parents, you can associate that trauma of the divorce with marriage in general, and that can really scare kids of divorced parents away from getting married, because you just assume, well, this person will probably leave me, so why would I want to get married? Another aspect of this too is, again, in the 60s. The 60s weren't really a great time. I wasn't there, but it seems like it didn't help this kind of stuff. Marriage used to be the context in which you would find physical intimacy, sexual intimacy, and with the sexual revolution of the 60s and the resultant childbearing of, intimacy, it's not limited to marriage. And then contraceptives also played a part in this too. So, it used to be, hey, if you want to be able to have physical intimacy, you need to get married. That went away in the 60s. So it's like, really, the summary of our secular culture and their view of dating and marriage is really, you don't need to get married in order to have all the benefits of marriage, so why should you get married? In fact, I think if you have this worldview, it makes more sense not to get married, because, what if you end up with someone that, you get bored with after a few years? Then it's like, that's really like keeping you from the life goal of happiness. So it's just better to date and be promiscuous than to get married. So that's kind of the dating is never a goal in marriage. So we'll just kind of close that chapter, because it's very sad and dark. And then we'll move to some advice from you parents. Here's a bit of advice. Begin to pray for your future spouse now. It's really good advice. I started doing that probably when I was a teenager, probably a little bit later than I could have. But yeah, I think that's good advice. God, loves to give us good things, and it's a good thing to pray for. So, are we good on secular culture? We've understood that pretty well? Okay. Now let's go to the other end, and I am going to pick on our own camp for a while of Christian culture, and kind of, and this is not representative of everybody. Even in what preceded when talking about our secular culture, not everybody who aren't Christians believe that about marriage. This is very broad generalizations, but I'm going to pick on this kind of viewpoint just a little bit and focus on that. Maybe pick on isn't the right word. So, these are kind of the steps when it comes to culture and marriage for a Christian viewpoint. It's built into human beings that we should desire companionship and sexual intimacy, right? Yeah? Okay, like Genesis 1 and 2, that's kind of, it's not good that the man should be alone, right? Yeah, okay. So can you find companionship outside of marriage? Yeah. We should be friends with each other. Can you find sexual intimacy outside of marriage? You can. It's not what the Bible's encouraging, right? And then, so if you want to enjoy the benefits of marriage, you need to be married, right? Okay, I'm glad we're nodding. If you want to be married, there's some steps you have to take before that. You should date someone, you should court someone. Depends on who you ask or what book you're reading about Christian dating. Some people are fine with dating and some people are like, no, you should only court. And I am confused of the difference most of the time. And then the last one is you need to be ready to be married before you can date. There's no need to be playing with another person's feelings in life if you're not ready to be married. This is kind of what I heard growing up. And I think a lot of this makes sense. This is good advice, right? Which then goes into boundaries, right? Secular culture, no boundaries, don't have to worry about it, because this is not going to lead towards marriage. Sexual intimacy is just something that you can have. So secular culture does not really care about boundaries very much. But the Christian culture, because they're saying, look, sexual intimacy should only be had in marriage. Now, boundaries matter, physical boundaries and all that kind of stuff. So because sexual intimacy is only for marriage, watch out what you do. Watch out for what you do with the person you're dating. Don't cross any lines and have sexual boundaries. Typically, how this gets communicated then is, boys, you will struggle with lust, but you need to have the commitment to this girl that you're dating if you're to have the reward of marriage and intimacy with this girl. And then to the girls, typically the advice is given, boys will just struggle with lust, so do all that you can to keep them from sinning with their eyes or with their bodies. Again, this is kind of what I heard growing up in youth group and stuff like that. And then, I went too far. Here we go. And then this is kind of the Christian how-to of dating. So you've got the Christian dating couple, and kind of the bridge to a great marriage is you need to have, keep yourself pure, have boundaries, make sure that you're a virgin when you get married, and then when you get married, you'll have a great marriage. That's kind of what gets communicated. Does that make sense? Am I talking too fast? Okay. Right pace? Okay. Because there is the Bills-Bengals game at 2, and we'll see what happens. Maybe if we're all here and want to watch it, we could throw it up on the screen. So let's talk about some critiques of both of these viewpoints. When it comes to the secular viewpoint, I think it's just flatly wrong. When it says that you don't need to be married in order to enjoy all the benefits of marriage, that's not true. Right? I just want to clarify, can you have sex outside of marriage? Yeah, but that's not all the benefits of being married. That's not all it is. In fact, I think probably the biggest, I guess maybe the most obvious benefit of being married over and against just, sleeping around is that you're married. You can't say that you enjoy all of the same benefits of marriage without being married. No, because you don't have that same level of commitment. Otherwise, you're just one person and another person, and you like to hang out a lot and do some other things. That's not marriage. In marriage, you have that commitment, that promise of, I will never leave you or forsake you. That is a huge benefit. You get to have that security that you can rest knowing this person loves me and will never leave. So I think the idea that you can enjoy all of the benefits of marriage without being married it's just wrong. And there's so much more we could talk about biblically of how that's wrong. But I also have some critiques for this particular Christian way of talking, and mainly having to do with the messaging around boundaries and all that kind of stuff, one for women and one for men. I think women are responsible for their own actions, right? That's kind of a big deal. It's like each human being is responsible for what they do, right? Women are not responsible for the actions of men, right? Women are not the gatekeepers of purity. Men share that responsibility. So, if you're dating someone, you can't put it all on one person of like, you are responsible for keeping this relationship pure and having sexual boundaries and all that kind of stuff. You can't put that all on one person. Also, women can struggle with lust just like men. To say that it's only a man's problem, I mean, very often, if that's the messaging that's heard, and then a girl struggles with lust, that's going to cause all of these identity issues of, wait, I thought this was only something that a man struggles with. I'm a woman. What's wrong with me? And that adds just so much more confusion and hurt. And it's like, let's just say at the outset, everyone can struggle with sin. There aren't particular sins that only men struggle with or only women struggle with. It's just better to be clear with our language there. So that's kind of some critiques from the advice given to women. For men, on the flip side, not all men struggle with lust. I've talked to guys sometimes and I've been like, hey, has that ever been a struggle for you? And I just praise God when I hear, no. Like, that's so cool. That's wonderful. So, and saying that all men must lust, basically, can lead to identity issues. Or, if they don't, of like, maybe I'm not man enough, maybe I should be more of a man and, start looking at women, as well as it might even, like I said, then encourage them to start sinning that way. It's like, that's not good. Like, let's just say that, we all struggle with sin, but you don't have to struggle a particular way. Men are just as responsible to maintain physical boundaries as women. To say that they can't remove responsibility from men, and I'm not about removing responsibility from anybody. I think one of the best gifts that we can give people is the gift of responsibility. Because if I say my behavior is dependent on you or my circumstances, we'll be stuck. Because other people will not change for us, and our circumstances often won't change either. But if my accountability before God is based off of these people and these circumstances, that's not good. But if it's I'm responsible to God for what I do, that gives me agency and power then to start working on obedience to Jesus. And then this last one is not all men are ready for a commitment when they start dating. When we talk about don't date until you're ready to get married, not all men are ready. This is what I mean. We'll go back down here. Okay, so dating's not the same thing as marriage. Okay? It's not the same thing. Let's say it together so I know that we're on board with this. Dating is not the same thing as marriage. Okay. It doesn't have to lead to marriage. That's okay if it doesn't. It might lead to marriage. That'd be great if it does. But it might not, and that's okay too. This is kind of the order of operations for those of you who are more math-minded. I'm not. You guys know this. Order of operations and commitment level. Let me see if my little, it does. Yes, this thing is so cool. Okay, so first, when you date, what's the first thing that has to happen? You meet each other. If you don't have any, if you don't talk to them, you're not dating. I used to do this, like when I was in middle school. I would be like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. Like I would think like we're practically dating. It's like, no, stop it. So first you meet, right? And then, maybe you start dating. It doesn't have to lead to that. That's fine. You can just be friends. Awesome. But maybe you start dating. You see how the commitment level is kind of getting darker and changing colors here? Like this is, I'm representing commitment level, okay? As you go this way, commitment level is getting more. Okay, so you're dating. You do that for a while. That's awesome. Then what happens? You get engaged. And the girl, she just knows it's coming. Because the guy is like, y'all, when I got engaged, we went to Chipotle first. And I'm at Chipotle. I'm supposed to be with, my girlfriend's soon-to-be fiance, and I'm at the table, and like how they have the design on the Chipotle cup, there's like all this artwork and stuff, and it's cool. But I spent the entire time at Chipotle looking at this cup, like, she's like, everything all right there, Haas? And I'm like, oh man, just the artwork here is just, wow. And I'm checking my watch too, because we had to go back to her house, because my car was parked there, and I actually had the whole thing set up in the trunk of my car, was like how I was going to propose, because there was this running joke of like how she would ask, hey, what's in it? Because I got her a birthday present, I put it in the trunk, and then she was like, she thought it was the engagement ring, and so she's like, what's in the trunk, Brax? And she kept asking me for months, and so I was like, now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in the trunk, so then I can give her the keys and be like, hey, go check what's in the trunk, and it'd be so romantic and stuff, but I needed to beat traffic to get back, so I'm checking my watch the entire time, and she's like, what? And I'm like, we got to make good time back home, and she's like, you never care about making good time. So she knows, is the point, is what I'm saying. She knows it's coming. But then you get engaged, and now the level of commitment is changing. You see, you've got a blue tint now. I don't know what that means for your personal life. Let the reader understand. You will not become a Smurf at this point in your life, or a Na'vi from Avatar. Anyway, the level of commitment is still increasing. Now you're doing wedding planning. And when I say you, I mean she is, and you are there for emotional support. Whenever she needs something, you just do it. You say, yes, dear, you're going to do a lot of that later. And then you get to this point, right? That's the end of this whole thing. And now you've crossed over into a whole nother realm of commitment that I cannot represent with colors. Okay? So, does this make sense? Here's what you should not do. You should not do this. Okay? Don't do this. This is bad. Do not think that I've met, we're dating, and now we are getting married. That's just going to happen because we're dating. Don't do that. That's very bad. This over here, this is very good, because you are not committed to this person until that time. I mean, there are people that, they get to the altar and they go, sorry, this is just a bad idea, which I can't imagine. That's why, the level of commitment keeps increasing there, because, now you've got a lot of money into this, obviously. But you're not committed to this person until you say, I do. And if you do this, it's just going to lead to some really bad things. Girls, if he thinks this, dump him right away. Just get rid of him, okay? Guys, same. Just, if she thinks this, you're like, I'm out. I'm not doing that. Because you're not married to this person. And that is okay. I got to keep going, but I'll give a couple more bits of advice from you parents. If you're a girl, this is advice to the girls. Find a man who will embrace God's call to be the spiritual leader of your family and home. And then another one, I'll talk a little bit about this too. Build a relationship through friendship before dating, and be yourself, not who you think the person wants you to be. That's so good. We'll talk about more of that later. So now we're going to get into principles of dating. And before we do, I asked Christine Nielsen, and I told her this might be the most powerful slide of the entire conversation. And that's in some ways that's kind of where I'm at with the principles of dating. I think this next one, yeah. So here's the thing: dating is relatively new in human history. Guys, girls, you know how they used to do it was your parents would have decided for you who you're going to marry, and they would set all the arrangements, and then you would marry that person. That's how it used to be for most of human history. So dating is within the last 300 years, we've decided that dating is a thing. And so, because the Bible does not talk about dating because it did not exist yet, this is going to be, in what follows, opinion and observation. So if you don't, and what I want us to enter into now is a time acknowledging that all of these things that we're going to talk about are principles of dating and advice and stuff like that. It's a matter of conscience. It is not a matter of God's word, that if you do it this way, you're doing it righteously, and you're doing it this way, you're doing it sinfully. And we'll talk more about that because you can sin in dating, but the point being, as long as we're seeking to honor Jesus in our dating lives, for the most part, these are just going to be opinions and observations. But we'll talk about, okay, principle 1, this is so important, love God. Before you start getting into dating, love God, okay? And this is specifically when it comes to dating, this is a benefit of this. If you love God, you want to be obedient to Him, right? Which then means that you will obey His commands concerning sexual boundaries in your relationship. Because you want to love Him and obey Him, you'll do that in your relationship. Because the other thing is that you should love your neighbor as yourself. You see why this one is first, though, right? Because if you are trying to love your neighbor as yourself and you're dating your neighbor, which we used to call each other neighbor when we were sitting together in church. Don't think that way right now. But if you're dating your neighbor, you could very easily start thinking, well, in order to love my neighbor as myself, well, what do they want to do in this relationship? And even if it's sinful, we're just going to do that. So that's why it's so important to start with love God, but then love your neighbor as yourself. This is going to make the dating relationship a learning experience no matter where it goes, because you are learning how to love another human being. I can tell you, I thought I was such a loving person until I started dating. In like a serious relationship. I thought I was very selfless and loving. And then I found out I am not. I am not that way. And then, you have kids. And then you find out even more how you're not loving and not self-sacrificing and how selfish you are. So to date someone else, no matter what happens, if they break up with you, if you break up with them, or you get married, you're going to start learning how to love your neighbor as yourself better because you are doing that very intentionally for this other person. Did I turn? No, here we go. Maybe. The anticipation. Thanks, Isaiah. This thing was cool. It still does that. There we go. Okay, all right. We'll edit that bit out. This one is, I think, huge. Know that you are loved by God. This will free you from needing to be in a relationship with another person in a dating relationship. Guys, the thing that I have heard the most from girls when they break up with someone in teenage years is this. And this isn't everybody, because I Googled it, and there are lots of other reasons that this never was one of them. But here's the biggest one I've heard. He was too needy. Don't do that, okay? Know that you are loved by God. That will give you the confidence, and this is the same for the girls too, not just the guys. This will give you the confidence to go, guess what? I don't need you. Okay, married folk, do you need your spouse? Kind of. Would you be, okay, but if God took him home to glory tomorrow, would you ultimately be okay? Why? Because you have life insurance. Yes. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away, you know? Perfect. But and if you even didn't have that, right? When it comes down to it, you would be okay because you are loved by God. You are a child of the King. You do not need another human being in order to be to live a happy and a fulfilled life. Jesus, would you say he was probably the happiest person who ever walked the face of the planet? Because of the intimacy of the relationship that he had with his Father. Yes, he had that. And he never got married. He was single the whole time. He's married now, though, to us, which is awesome and a different talk. But know that you are loved by God. That will give you the confidence to be able to say, I do not need you in order to be happy. And really, it'll, in that bit of advice too of don't be the person that you think that they want you to be, it'll free you up to be yourself too. Because you're not looking for their love primarily, you're looking for love from the Father, which you already have, so you can just walk in freedom and confidence to be yourself. You don't have to be someone different. Now, there is the whole aspect of love them the way that they need to be loved, and that might mean that you need to, for me, it means being quiet more. Because I used to just, oh my gosh, Our arguments between Jess and me are much more like I ask a question and I wait 5 minutes for a response, and then she asks me a question and I just respond like that, because that's just who we are. And so I've had to learn to be very patient and, rather than thinking, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you talking back to me right away when I ask a question? Anyway, this is another important principle here, which is different than the other ones, but don't judge yourself by standards that aren't in the Bible. Don't do that. There are so many standards that we have set up in our Christian culture that are not found in the Bible that, like I said earlier, these are matters of opinion and conscience. And so if we take the advice that someone else offers and we judge ourselves by that person's advice, we're going to find a lot of condemnation, I think. But if we judge ourselves by God's standards and God's rules, we're going to find more freedom to love Him and to love other people. And I'm pulling straight from 1 Corinthians 4:6. Don't go beyond what's written. And Paul is in context talking about issues of conscience and things like that and pride. So here's my question. Who's better? The guy who's kissed 10 girls or the guy who waited until marriage to kiss? According to God's word, who's better? According to God's word, there's no answer. Right? Who's better? The girl who has dated a lot of guys or the girl who only dated one guy? According to God's standards, God's word, nothing. There's no answer to this. Kissing people, just to get into the nitty-gritty here, kissing people is a matter of conscience and cultural significance. Do you know that we ignore a clear command in the Bible to kiss each other because cultural significance and meaning around that term has changed? Can you imagine going to church on Sunday morning and everyone that you see, you have to kiss? That would be awful. I'm the youth pastor. That would be a horrible thing to go through every week. If we started, we're going to be Bible Christians. Hold up. I don't want to do that. So, the meaning around this has changed. So now this is a matter of conscience. I would submit that you can kiss someone before you're married to them if your conscience allows it. I think. If your conscience doesn't let you do that, don't do it. Because who gave you your conscience? God did. Okay, so don't just throw out what conscience God gave you. So I'm not saying, hey, Oscar, the next time you see a girl, just, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, follow your conscience. God gave you that conscience. But, we should know that kissing people is a matter of conscience. It's not set in stone in God's word. Don't kiss anyone before you get married. Also, dating lots of people. I love talking to Terry McEachern about this because she was the one that talked about this. 100 years ago, it was normal to date a whole bunch of people. Why would you only go out with one guy? That's because Terry was telling me, her mom, this is what she, actually Andy Griffith days and pre that, it would be like a girl would go out with a different guy every week. She wanted to find the best man. Why wouldn't you? Instead, we do the whole weird commitment thing, that we talked about earlier, of we're dating, which means we're together, we're serious about this. And if I see someone else, that means I'm cheating on you. It's no, it does not mean that. So dating lots of people, that was normal. And now in our culture, it starts to be viewed negatively. So then we take on that view, and gosh, but it's a matter of conscience. If you don't want to date lots of people, fine. But if you do, okay, if that happens, all right, I don't think God's word is against it. Dating lots of people or kissing lots of them, it could totally be a sign of a heart issue. And I'm not talking about cardiovascular, you should check with your doctor. I'm saying it might be that this person who's kissing lots of people or dating lots of people, maybe they're not satisfied with Jesus and they're trying to find love and satisfaction in all these relationships. Maybe. It's not necessarily a sign of that. Maybe the person who's refusing to date or kiss until they're ready for marriage, maybe that could be a sign of a heart issue. I'm just spitballing here, but maybe this person isn't trusting God's timing. You could take anyone's behavior, because this stuff is not found in the Bible, you could take anyone's behavior around dating and say, maybe that's a sign of a heart issue. Maybe it's not. So what I would say, let's be people then who try to honor Jesus in our relationships, whether you're dating or married. And I would say too, let's not judge other people. First the principle was, let's not judge ourselves by standards that aren't in the Bible. But let's also not judge other people in our midst by standards that aren't in the Bible. I was talking to some girls a couple weeks ago about this particular part of this talk, and I asked one of them, I'm like, how many guys have you dated? And she goes, 6. I'm like, okay. And the other one, we grew up together, and I knew she dated a lot of guys in youth group. And, I'm like, yeah, okay. What's sad is that, girls and guys who do that in our church can feel judged because they've dated a lot of people. That they're seen as, it's like, okay, no. Okay, sure, if she had been divorced 6 times by the time she's 16, that's a different story. But these are just dating relationships. Did you learn something? My question is, did you learn something from the relationship that you were in? And gosh, as a dad, I would be like, did he treat you well? That would be really important to me, and should be important to daughters. Are you being treated well? If you're not, just get out. You don't have to sit around for that. But I have this. I'm kind of on a soapbox right now. Let's not judge people if they end up dating a lot of people. That's okay, and let's not view them as failed relationships either. Because if it ended, that's a success. They shouldn't have been with that person. That's successful. They found out something about themselves and about another human. That's a success. That's not, oh, you failed because you didn't get married. Oh, let's not put that burden on ourselves. So here's some advice. This is not in the Bible, okay? So feel free to take this or leave this. I'll finish the parent ones and I'll end with mine. Don't rush, and focus on friends and relationship building. And also, this is so important. You need to know this. Mom and dad really do have your best interests at heart. They really do. They really want to help. They really want your best. They want you to be happy and protected from heartache and stuff like that. And, they know that you're probably going to go through heartache anyway. But, gosh, you're their kids. They want to help and be there for you. So that's some advice. Here's some of mine. And this top one is what the note cards are for. Have a list of values that are absolutely non-negotiable, essential things for you to have in a spouse. It just can help you to know what you're looking for. The person I got this bit of advice from was my wife before we were married. She's 4 years older than me, and so I was like, she is so wise, being 4 years older. And so I asked her, like, what do you think? What would help in dating relationships? And she said this. And what happened to me was I made the list. And then a few months later, I looked at the list and I went, oh no, this is just Jess. So I found myself in a bit of trouble because she had given me this advice and now I was very interested in her. So I would encourage you, this is the last slide, so you can start working on that list as soon as you want. But also, know what your likes are. And your likes are different than the list of essentials. Because your likes, odds are, those are going to fluctuate, those are going to change. The essentials, you might add some things maybe, but for the most part, that list is going to be pretty similar throughout life. But likes, this is just helpful to know, of like, does this person need to be interested in all of the same hobbies that I'm interested in? Or is it something that I could take that or leave it? That's really what the likes are, of what could you take, what could you leave? It's not essential for you, but what might be nice. And then this is what I did. You don't have to do it this way. Other people don't do it this way, but this is what I did. Only date someone after you've gotten to know them as a friend and have been around them and their friends. I was not out to impress my wife, which is kind of bad saying that, but I was not. I wasn't. When we met, I've known my wife since I was about 10, something like that. I wasn't out to impress her. She was 4 years older than me. I was like, you're a high schooler. I'm not even into middle school yet. Obviously this would never happen. So I was never like, oh yeah, I should make sure that I'm on my best behavior around her, which meant she knew what kind of goofball I was before we started dating, and I knew what kind of goofball she was. And we're both different brands. I'm more Pepsi, she's more Coke, but we're both goofballs. And so we got to know. There were no surprises later of like, wait a minute, this is what you're like. She knew, I knew. So I would recommend that. Like I said, you don't have to do that. Some people go on, Christian Mingle, and you don't go on Christian Mingle in order to like find a friend. You got a very specific purpose into going into that. So, and then a red flag here. So not really advice, but a red flag. A relationship shouldn't isolate you from your friends and family. If it's doing that, dump her, just get out, maybe talk about it, I don't know. I'm very quick to the dumping, I'm realizing that now. I've said, that's like been my go-to advice, just get rid of them, just kick them to the curb. Maybe you talk about it, that might help with the whole learning to love your neighbor as yourself. You'll learn to communicate. Yeah, probably want to do that first. But anyway, it shouldn't isolate you from your friends and your family. And if you do start dating someone, make sure that you are staying in good relationship with your friends and your family. Most of the time, teenage relationships end, and that's totally okay. Like I said, that's a success. But when you start of not hanging out with your friends anymore, it's just going to get harder to kind of re-enter into that after you've broken up with the person that you were hanging out for a while. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's all I got. So yeah, you guys can start working on that list. Q&R time. Like I said, it's R because I can respond. I might not be able to answer. What questions do you guys have? Or did this answer all of your questions? Y'all, if we don't have any questions, I'm going to lose my mind, because then that will mean that this is like the best dating talk that has ever been given. And this needs to go tell it on the mountain once this goes on YouTube, because people need to hear this good news. What do they do to date?
Watch Netflix.
Yeah, theaters are they're still around. So the question is, what do kids do to date nowadays? Yeah, they don't go to the pool hall. Yeah, those do not. Yeah. Gosh, and it depends on how old they are, because it might be where mom and dad have to drive them over to their date, which personally I find this is all advice and opinion, but maybe wait until you can drive yourself, just to avoid the awkwardness of having to ride with your parents to your date. That would be what I would do. But you don't have to do it that way. I don't know. Gosh, I don't know. You guys, Zach, Preston. Yeah. What? These guys are just, yeah. So what do the youngins do to date?
Well, it's like it.
Yeah, you would FaceTime, right?
Yeah, a ton of FaceTime.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's helpful. Some people do that.
No, just normal FaceTime. Northern Valley's a hit. Hiking.
Online gaming?
Went to Colorado a couple times.
But, Carolyn and I both live, she's in St. Paul, I'm in Minneapolis. So there's plenty to do, a lot of restaurants, we go to art museum a lot. But then, look, Carolyn and I were more of a Disney Plus.
Yeah. Yep. Disney Plus is much better. Yeah. Yep.
Well, they have Simpsons.
Yeah.
I think clear for my girls, dating as a hike in Colorado isn't going to happen.
Yep.
I like the suggestion.
Yeah.
Hiking in general. That was more just like,
Okay, good.
They can't go to Montana.
They are not coming with. Yeah, I mean,
all over the world in that Colorado.
I guess some of it is a little bit different. Like the FaceTime stuff, you're able to do a little bit more long distance stuff, and online gaming and stuff. But I think a lot of it is similar. So yeah.
The outdoors haven't changed.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
The outdoors haven't changed at all, so we do stuff outside.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, doing stuff that you like to do together. Yeah.
Whatever you do by yourself, when you
Yeah.
something to eat.
Yep. Yeah. Go frolfing. Yeah. What other questions do we have? Do we have any questions from any youth?
You honestly think you're going to ask them?
I don't know. They surprise me sometimes with the. Okay, yeah. Isaiah. How long did I date Jess? That's a good question. Thank you. Before we got engaged, we dated 6 months. So, and some of you parents are already like, you are not doing that to your kids. I would say, in my defense, our situation was a little bit different. We had been hanging out as friends for years before we were engaged. We were also old enough to start making those kinds of decisions on our own. So I think we got to know each other well enough through the friendship phase, and then we got to a point where we're like, we want to get married. So 6 months of dating, but it was probably like 2 years of really good friendship before that. Does that answer your question, Isaiah? Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Don't have any others, so Hey, thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys. Thanks for let me and of course, if you have questions that you want to ask after while we tear down, that's totally fine. We don't have to ask it, in front of everybody and have it on YouTube. I'll be here for
I have a question.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right.
I have a question for the teenage boy.
Okay.
So, is it awkward? Would it be awkward for a girl to ask you out for coffee? Like, is that
Levi's like, heck no. That's what I'm hoping for. It certainly does, yeah.
So, like, we grew up in a time where guys would only ask girls.
Mm-hmm.
But is it awkward for a girl to ask a guy out for coffee, or?
Yeah, you know where you stand then. I think even me, I would have been like, this is awesome. I would have been so excited. Yeah, because, you most of the time you don't know if a girl likes you, which is probably for the best. I think God did that on purpose, where like the male brain, because girls, you guys are like way ahead of like male brain development, to the point, like I have had people say, like, did you know how many girls liked you in youth group growing up? I'm like, no, I had no idea how many girls liked me. I would have been a much different person. I would have been way more arrogant if I knew that girls liked me. I was like going like, zero confidence into every situation. So maybe it's a good thing that we have no idea. But if you want to add clarity to the situation, the worst you can hear is no. Let me just say, when she says no, or he says no, should you really take that really deeply personally? Yeah, the whistling answer is no. No, because do they know you? Not really. Does anyone really know you that well? Who knows you the best? Your mom, God, and you. Those are the top three. Mom, God, you. 100%. Most important thing then, does God love you? Yes. Does your mom love you? Yes. And then you know you. So, then the question is, do you love you? And that, we can get into that more later, if you want to ask that question later. How do you begin to love yourself more? I would think learn from Jesus and how he loves you. to love yourself and see yourself the way that he sees you. But the thing is, if they say no to you, they are saying no to you based off of this much perception of you. I could do this right now. I could have all of you turn and look at each other at the table. Go ahead, just do it. Okay, you've looked at each other. Now I could ask the question, which person, simply based off of how they look, do you like the least? And I'm not asking, no, do not point, don't say it, sorry. Especially, I should have clarified. But here's the thing, I'm glad that all the brothers and sisters did it to each other. But here's the thing, if you were all strangers, you would have one person at the table that you would be able to honestly say, this is the person simply based off of the way that they look that I would like the least. But if I were to have you guys tell each other your deepest hopes, your deepest dreams, your deepest pains around that table, you would begin to love that person that you chose simply based off of looks, who you like the least. So here's the thing, if they reject you, if they say no, that has very little to do with you. It probably says more about them, but you don't judge them, that's fine. You reject people too. We all do when it comes to dating and relationships. So like I said, the worst thing that you can hear is no. And that, honestly, yeah, I know it's gonna hurt a little bit, but do hard things. It's not going to kill you to hear that, actually. And you'll be stronger for it, hearing the no. And that's okay. And to know that you're loved by God, that you're learning to love and accept yourself the way that God does, and that your mom will always love you, you're going to be okay. That was a really good question. I think we'll end with that. I feel like that landed the plane well. So let me pray. And then, like I said, if you have questions that you still want to ask, feel free to stick around and do that. We'll need help cleaning up a little bit, so if you could stay for that. And then, yeah, we won't miss much of the game at all. So, good job, everyone. All right, let me pray. Father, thank you. Thank you that you give us the gift of companionship. That if it's your will in our lives, that you also give us the gift of marriage. Thank you that it's not for everyone, that we don't have to have that pressure of, everyone has to get married, because Jesus, you didn't get married, your servant Paul didn't get married. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. That's what it's about. And if you want to give us the gift of marriage, we praise you for that. It's a really good gift, and we learn so much about you and loving people through it. But we also thank you for the in-between of dating and learning to love that way, and learning more about you and ourselves in that. I pray that what we've talked about today would be a help in youth in their lives as they go through the tangled mess of dating and relationships. I pray that you would help them to love you with a love that leads to obedience. I pray that you, through their dating experience, would cause them to love others deeper and better. I pray that you would help them to know that they are loved infinitely by you, and that no matter what happens, you hold them in your hands, and you will take care of them because you love them. So I pray that you would bless them, each of them, and bless the parents that are here as well, as they seek to guide and point their kids to Jesus in the way that they parent, in the way that they guide them and talk about dating and all of that. Give them an extra heaping of blessing as they navigate that with their kids. Thank you for this time. We pray these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right. Thank you, guys. This was fun.